All praises to the horizon, peace, wealth, and wisdom. It's the wise one here, Mr. Solace Lecture. And today I want to take a short moment out to explain to you guys the difference between indigenous or aboriginal and native. You have the word Native Americans and, native to a land. We assume this is the same as indigenous or aboriginal, but I want to explain to you how they're different. The reason for that, many things I explain to you guys when dealing with colonization is not fully grasped because you guys do not fully grasp what indigenous men are in comparison to us and native, which would be like our ancestors. And so I want to explain this as short as possible. Now, on every continent, of course, first you have your indigenous men or your aboriginal men. They usually have very little clothing on, usually just like something covering their genitals, and that's it. Paint and things like this on themselves to kind of block themselves from the sun so they don't burn, and to keep the bugs off. Of course, they have their wisdom as well. And so, as I said, most indigenous men, or all of them, they usually have little to no clothing on. They may only have a string just tying the penis, to the stomach so it won't flap all around. This is your indigenous men. Simple thing to grasp. The word aboriginal, no different. And so this is your indigenous men. Now, after these indigenous men come into contact with what we call the colonizers, so you get offspring or descendancy falling in the balance, meaning they're mixed with both colonizer blood as well as indigenous. Now, of course, this first generation of descendants, they still associate themselves with the indigenous men, so to say, meaning they view themselves as they view the indigenous men as their ancestors. But they live in a world now full of colonizers, and they have nationalities in their way of life, and they are making the world or that continent that way. And so now you have your first descendant generation, your second descendant generations, as they're mixing and merging, so you're getting more generations, more descendants over time. These are your natives. So you can use America as an example. When we speak of Native Americans and their tribes, those were not indigenous men, but they are a couple of generations after, where they still have some of the indigenous people ways and wisdom, and they have the colonizers as well. And so the colonizers have nationalities because they have cities and nations. They came that way. And so these natives, which are the descendants of the indigenous men, but of course they have colonizers' ways as well as their blood. They live in a new place now. New meaning things are changing, the ways. And so this is why Native Americans, the tribes, have names. An Iowa, which would be Cherokee, your Chickasaw, your different tribal names. This is just, over generations, it's slowly going to cities, nations, and nationalities in that place. Of course, the people are in that place. You get it? And so the natives of the land, you can use America as an example. The Native Americans are not the indigenous people, but they are. You had your white albino. This is a separate race from what we call white people today. This is before white people. And so you had your white albinos and your indigenous men on every continent. The white albinos colonized those indigenous men. from that first joining, you get your black albino. You get it? And so that black albino merges with both sides. It doesn't have to just be one, but those black albinos, they merge back with both sides, meaning the indigenous as well as the white albino. Now, when that black albino merges back with the white albino, so you get your red, orange hair, whites. Y'all call them like the Vikings. You get your blondes from, you know, those reds or orange heads merging back in with those white albino. And from there, you know, you get your rest. Meaning when those red and orange hairs begin to merge in with the indigenous men. So you get your black and brown hair, races of whites. Now when that black albino, which is white skin, merges back in with the indigenous people, so you get your many different shades and variations of them as well. Then from there, you know, you got your red, orange hairs, you got your blonde hair whites, mixing and merging with your many different variations of indigenous men. And so over time, you can see how you get many different variations of people. But all those white nationalities, meaning your blondes, your red, orange heads, your brown heads, your black heads, as well as all your many different shades of your colored or black races, we are one race of man. Meaning you got your indigenous men, then you got your white albinos, and then you got, you know, what comes from that, which is your many variations in between white albino and black indigenous. And so I just explained how you get your white variations. I explained how you get your black indigenous variations. And so as you can clearly see, it wouldn't matter if you're black or white. If you're not indigenous or a white albino, well then you just that in-between race that they call demigod in the past. And so kind of get a better understanding of nationalities. Hopefully that was clear and you guys grasped. I'm not sure. But I have a little West African fly in here. I have to get rid of him. Peace, wealth, and wisdom.